Hello! It is episode 120 of the Guardian Project podcast. I'm Andy, and I'm convinced that Reckless Stormseeker was loosely based on the movie Twister.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Except the werewolf part came later. It was mostly
oh my goodness.
Reckless Stormseeker was just trying to get Dorothy up into the tornado.
We're saying that they're like the main, like, oh, okay. Wait, Dorothy getting up into the tornado.
Dorothy is the stuff that collects the data in the tornado.
Oh, I didn't realize that was named Dorothy. I haven't seen
named Dorothy.
You haven't seen
Twister since like the weekend it came out.
1995, 6, whatever it is.
It's been a long time since I've seen Twister, but Stormseeker, I mean, that's what they're doing. They're driving at the tornado.
Yeah.
It's a good movie.
Honestly, it is a pretty
Tornadoes
good
are pretty scary. And when they were like hanging out in the ditch, like as that tornado was passing under that little bridge. That'd be kind of cool to see a tornado. We get some of them here in Michigan, but not really by us, except there was that one many years ago that got by our area, actually, not far from where you live now.
Right. Yeah.
They were like massive, like trees, like that looked like they were like hundreds of years old. They were just ripped out of the ground.
Right up, uprooted.
Yeah. But yeah, Twister's a good movie.
Yeah. Well, I'm your other host, Mike, and a lot of people were asking just what went wrong with Ludovic's experiment where he had Olag become the outcome. Sadly, after reading his research notes, it seems he just got a little flipped around.
Two-face card.
Hey.
That was good.
Please listen carefully.
That was good. And this is the podcast where we talk about all things Magic the Gathering.
But mostly Commander.
So a couple of announcements. The first one here being that we are going to have our first large Magic event coming up November 19th through the 21st in Las Vegas, hosted by Channel Fireball. There is a main event for both Limited and for Modern, and they will have a Command Zone as well. The Command Zone, you will also get a Path of Ancestry playmat with new art and a promo Path of Ancestry. But I think what was more interesting here, and the last time we talked about this, it was a really long time ago, it was before the pandemic started, or as it started, was the rating scale for Commander decks, because the Magic Fest Detroit that was supposed to happen that got canceled, they had a scale, and I don't remember who created it, but on this, there is a How to Rate Your Commander Deck brought to you by the Command Zone podcast. And it is not, I do not believe it is identical to what we had talked about before. And this is more in line with what we have said for a while now, which is where the 3 to 4 is considered casual. We're trying to win with limited resources. For an example, the recent precons. So it's putting them below the 5, because I remember last time I believe precons was listed as a 5, and this is putting them at a potential 3 now.
But it is saying recent precons.
Correct. So your the original ones from 2011 are probably listed in the 1 and 2 now.
Agreed.
But the 3s and 4s now. But this is more in line with what I thought, because I do argue myself that I have a Noy and Dar deck. It doesn't have a single infinite. And 7 and 8 listed here as optimized is lots of infinite game-ending combos, many powerful cards, but some of the cards are not from the highest tier of Commander gameplay. I argue all the time that I think my Noyandar is a 6, and people just have different expectations of what everybody thinks their deck's a 7. It's not.
It's true. Everyone thinks it's a 7.
7's real good. I think the Rionia is in the 7-8 here, and that's a pretty good deck.
Yeah. Yeah, I would, and the thing holding it back is maybe the reason you call it a 7 and not an 8 maybe is because it's only mono red, and it could be better if it's got more colors associated
maybe
with it or something.
I mean, fast mana contributes to this, so the sooner you can get your things out. And then 9 to 10 is competitive, but 5 to 6 is considered focus, powerful card interactions, few to no infinite game ending combos. There are a few game ending infinite combos in 5. At 5 people.
Yeah, 5 to 6. A few of them.
Yeah. I mean, a few is 3, a couple is 2. So 3 game ending infinite combos, people are saying is a 5.
Yeah, maybe it's a little difficult to put those together or something.
Maybe they're 4 card pieces or 5 card infinite combos, not just 2.
Not just 2, one of them being your commander or something like that.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to note that this is what is being used as a skill, at least for this event, because this significantly ups the power, or I guess lowers it down. No, I say it ups the power because each of these categories, more than half the categories now, include a few infinite combos. We're now half the field, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, more than half.
Well, I think the phrase "game's gotta end" is being thrown throughout.
Yeah,
all of Commander now. So I mean, infinite combos are not a feel bad thing. Infinite combos mean game 2.
or game 3 or game 4.
Well, yeah, I guess
Got to get a bunch in. So this is actually over my birthday weekend, and I've never been to Vegas. I would love to go to this. It's just really short notice.
It is.
It's like a month and a half. I mean, it's more than a month and a half out now, but in 2 weeks it won't be.
Right. And you know, there's still a pandemic protocol and stuff that you have to worry about and think about and all that kind of stuff too. So
yeah, the nice thing here is that they are requiring face masks. They are requiring either proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test within the last 48 hours upon entry, it says.
Mm-hmm.
So if you leave and re-enter, I don't know how that works. There's a lot of discussion on this right now, because if you come in on Friday, it has to be within 48 hours of entering on Friday. But then if you enter on Sunday, that means you have to get another test from at least Friday.
Yep.
Or are they counting that test from the previous Thursday?
They shouldn't.
No, they should not.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. We would just bring our vaccination cards.
Yeah, we would.
I don't have to worry about that.
No,
but we also played on a stream. You and I had not played on a stream. It's been a little while, right? Since we had last played on a stream together.
I feel like
couple weeks.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the last one we did was like there was a shorter amount of time, but then the time before that was really long.
It was really long. We played with CNC Power Hours. Played with Chris and Clay, and I played my cigar deck, nicely updated with all of my Commander or my Innistrad Midnight Hunt cards. Did I play any of them? I didn't. I added Catilda, which makes all my humans into mana dorks.
Mm-hmm. Yep, didn't have that one.
Intrepid Adversary, the white one that is the Lord.
Yep, didn't have that one.
And I added a third one. Oh, the new Sigarda. Didn't play it.
Nope, didn't see it.
I didn't get any of my 3, but I did get a win.
You did get a win. I did not add any new cards to my deck at all. My Arden and Kodama deck. And although I didn't win, I did gain, I believe, over 100 life in that deck or in that game. So that's a win in my book.
It's a win.
It's not literally a win in my book because I'm tracking that.
It was literally a win in my book.
Correct.
And in your book.
In my
Spirits.
book, it's a win for you.
Correct. It was a win in both our books.
It's a win in both of our books.
I got you with Commander damage, which doesn't happen often with Sigarda.
No, not often. But yeah, that was the way. I mean, I didn't have much on the ground. It was just, I think
it was 3 hits, right? Because I turned Sigarda into a 7/7 3 times or bigger with a mirror entity.
I feel like I had 5 damage on it before, but
Maybe
it was 3
did.
hits after that. I mean, it was still 3 hits.
It was one of those games where there wasn't a single board wipe. Someone was short on mana. Chris was short on mana. And then I got to play Masako the Humorless, which gave all of my humans that pseudo vigilance. So it says tapped creatures you control can block as though they were untapped. So I mean, it gives them vigilance.
Yep.
Kind of. And air quotes. I'm using air quotes. And it was pretty nice. Coyle gave me the Monarch in the beginning because he couldn't get it back.
I don't have a lot of creatures in that deck to defend the Monarch. I just put it out there to try to get that. It's the green enchantment from Commander Legends that introduces the
Court
Monarch.
of Bounty.
Yeah, which is supposed to allow me to play more lands per turn, which I wasn't able to do. Or if I was the Monarch, just more permanents, which I also was not able to do. But that's okay.
But we appreciated it.
The Monarch needs to be in every game anyways.
Exactly. Before we continue, we want to thank all of you listening, and especially to our patrons. We thank you so much for all of your support. If you would like to support us, you can do patreon.com/Guardian Project Pod.
And if you're looking for another way to support the podcast, whatever platform you are enjoying the podcast on now, if you could subscribe, rate, review, and leave comments, we would really, really appreciate it.
You can also find us online at theguardianprojectpodcast.com. You can find our social media on Twitter at GuardianPod, our gameplay videos on YouTube at youtube.com/theguardianproject. And if you want to email us, you can email us at guardianprojectpod@gmail.com. We've got a fun topic this week. What are we talking about?
Oh, yeah. So 3 weeks ago, I think it was 3 weeks ago, we were talking about the top 5 most expensive deck themes that you could build around. So we are revisiting this topic to talk about the 5 most affordable deck themes that you can build around. So this one, a lot of people liked our episode about the most expensive ones. I think they're going to like this one even more about the most affordable. Everyone's looking to buy new decks and cheap cards and have good stuff with cheap stuff. So let's get into it.
This time we're going to get out our change purses and not our wallets, because you need far less bills.
There's almost 0.
I mean, not almost zero builds, but I mean, I guess you probably have a lot of these cards.
I just want you to walk into your LGS with a sack full of quarters to buy a brand new commander deck.
An entire commander deck with just quarters.
You won't see Ashling the Pilgrim and 99 Mountains on this 5 most affordable themes here, but you could do that.
You could. Starting out with the 5th most affordable deck theme is +1/+1 counters.
Yeah, so this one, tons of support, right? +1/+1 counters. You can see that in so many different colors, anywhere from your proliferate commanders like Atraxa to commanders that are really built around specifically +1/+1 counters like Azuri Claw of Progress. Commanders built around doubling counters like Vorl of the Hulklight. I mean, Simic is obviously what people are going to be thinking about when it comes to +1/+1 counters. But again, it's supported in all 5 colors.
And it looks like here, the high range here looks like a potential Ashai Rayhan build around just shy of 500, and then coming in around the most affordable based on the average build is Vorl of the Hulkblade, just over 160.
Yeah, there's actually a few others like Verazal, the Split Current.
This one actually is far less.
Yeah, for 116.81, but it's hard to tell without going into the Verazal average decks themselves. I mean, obviously, this is more built around the kicker theme than it is around the +1/+1 theme. You just get +1/+1 counters by doing the kicker, and kicker spells, unless you're building around the kicker spells, are typically not built around. They are cheaper cards, so it makes sense that sort of theme, the Verazal, the Split Current, would actually be one of the cheaper ones out there. But like, I guess some of the newer ones are seeing some increase. I expected something like Vorinclex Monster Raider to be more expensive, but the fact that it's mono green is keeping the mana base down a little bit. But +1/+1 counters is also something that's been around for forever. So the support is from every single set going back. We don't have to pick and choose the best of the best cards when building our +1/+1 counters because there's so much redundancy.
And a lot of them are just fun cards too. Like, you don't even have to play like the most expensive cards for +1/+1 counters. There certainly are some very expensive cards in +1/+1 counters decks. But looking at some of the high synergy cards, you've got cards like Corpsejack Menace, Fathom Mage, Simic Ascendancy, Winding Constrictor, Master Biomancer. Even venturing into white, you've got Cather's Crusade, and in Gruul, even Rhythm of the Wild, putting +1/+1 counters on creatures and giving them haste.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Cather's Crusade is an enchantment that we see here. And oftentimes in my head, I do associate +1/+1 counter strategies with token strategies.
I do too.
And I think that's because tokens are usually low to the ground 1/1s. And what other way to grow your tokens than put +1/+1 counters on them if they're not built around a particular creature type where you could be running lords to pump them. So you're using +1/+1 counters instead. So it is easy to see things like Felidar Retreat on here for some easy +1/+1 counter synergy. And token synergy. So you're going to see a lot of those cards here, but maybe not the token synergy cards, which we know from our last episode are particularly expensive, like Invited Procession and Doubling Season,
Parallel Lives. I actually like that one of the top cards that fits in every +1/+1 counter deck is actually from a set that came out within the last 2 years here at the Ozolith. Which is one of the more expensive cards actually in this, being around $15. It's a colorless card that says at the beginning of combat on your turn, if the Ozolith has counters on it, you may move them all from the Ozolith onto a target creature. And when a creature leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put them on the Ozolith. So if you're playing a deck based on these +1/+1 counters, you can put them, but it's not even just +1/+1. It can be any type of counter. The Ozolith, solid ad here.
Is really, it only costs 1 mana too.
You just play this on, you can dump it on turn 1, you can hold it. This is not a card that I look at to remove.
No.
It just works so well that eventually late game play against +1/+1 counters, you're like, well, I wish I got rid of that Ozolith 7 turns ago when I did have the artifact removal that I used on something that seemed way worse.
Yeah, destroy target permanent, CMC 2 or less or something like that.
Yeah, or Beast Within, whatever it is. And I was like, oh, this is horrible. I need to get rid of whatever this thing is. You realize, you know what? That probably would have caused me a lot less pain in the long run than this Ozolith is doing here.
And that's, again, one of the more expensive cards. Everything building around that, super cheap that you're going to be able to put in the deck. So you're going to be able to afford those big expensive staples. So very fun. +1/+1 counters, always going to be a good strategy.
It is. Looking at a couple of the top creatures here, we've got Colonian Hydra, Champion of Lambhole, Deep Glow Skate.
Love me some Deep
We're
Glow
still
Skate.
we're still solidly in Simic colors, but you've got Mikaeus the Lunarch. I like that Shalai and Embros, the Dean, the black-white Dean is listed here because you can put a +1/+1 counter on each creature that entered the battlefield under your control this turn. And top commanders in general for this, you've got Hamza, Atraxa, Felisa, Vorinclex, Skullbriar, Gargos. A lot of these I was not expecting to see listed on the top for +1/+1 counters. Like I didn't expect Felisa, Fang of Silverquill to be a +1/+1 counter commander. Of course, Hamza and Atraxa, Vorinclex, Skullbriar. So those I did.
I like seeing Drizzt on here as a +1/+1 counters. I know obviously it can just put +1/+1 counters on itself, but I know there's a lot of also synergies from AFR about +1/+1 counters, so I'm sure those were all built into there too. We talked about how it being token strategy being a good synergy, and Gav, Guru of Spores. Not only got a couple infinite combos with Innistrad Midnight Hunt lately, but also cares about tokens and +1/+1 counters. And we are spanning throughout all of the colors. Even we have Temur, Animar, Soul of Elements, gets +1/+1 counters and makes your creatures cheaper for each +1/+1 counter it has on it. So definitely spreading out.
And I like seeing the Sultai, Ukima, and Kazur, although most of the times that I see this, it's not based on +1/+1 counters, but I like that it could be just based on that theme. In most cases, I'm seeing a couple of infinite combos here, but this is a fun strategy. I run Cathar's Crusade in my Sigarda Heron's Grace deck. Do you run Cathar's Crusade in any of the decks you run?
I do run Cathar's Crusade in my Abzan tokens deck.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
Yeah, it's definitely my tokens deck is a sub theme of +1/+1 counter for sure.
Yeah.
So so that is the 5th most affordable theme here. So we can move on to the 4th most affordable theme as we're moving up to the most affordable theme, and this one is a Toughness Matters.
I did not expect this to be in the top 21 themes of all themes, though, either.
Yeah, me neither.
Some of these surprised us.
Yeah, I think all of them did, honestly. Even the most affordable one surprised me until I looked at the breakdown of decks, but we'll get to that. So Toughness Matters. We have an average deck price of $257.30. At the top end, we see a Nethroi deck that's actually the most expensive, and I don't think this one, although it says it cares about toughness, this is a $567.32 average deck price of a Nethroi Toughness Matters deck. I think it's more because Nethroi only cares about the power of the creatures that are in the graveyard. So it's just trying to, you can have 0 power creatures and bring back as many of those as you want with Nethroi, and you don't really care about the toughness. So maybe that's why it's being considered a Toughness Matters deck in accordance with EDHREC. And then the most affordable ones here are your Thantis, the Warweaver, and Arcades. So Arcades is turning your walls into things that can attack. So obviously that's going to be a Toughness Matters. Thantis, the Warweaver, this deck is probably just putting up a bunch of walls and making everyone attack each other.
Yeah.
So, and Thantis has a pretty big butt itself. So it's pretty nice. I think it's like a 7 toughness creature or something like that.
Yeah. Some of the top commanders here, it's a 5/5 actually.
Oh,
Thantis.
Okay.
You've got Arcades, a strategist, Phoenix, God of Deception, Dorn the Siege Tower, Cherix, the Raging Isle, Pramikon, and then Ikrashidiki, Sidar Kondo. That is not the entire list here, but I did not expect Nethroi to be on here, so
No.
I think there's an outlier there in that there's only 25 listed, but there's 3,201 Arcades decks listed here for the specific toughness theme.
Yeah, I imagine these Nethroi decks are built around, so it's like the total power of every creature in the deck is like 10 or something, so that you could just bring everything back at the same time, and that's why it's considered a Toughness Matters. But it's fun to see some of these cards that, walls and stuff aren't particularly expensive. One of the best walls in an Arcades deck here is Wall of Denial, a 3-mana 0/8 with Defender and Flying and Shroud, which Arcades makes basically into an 8/8. So an 8/8 for 3 with Flying and Shroud.
So thinking about Toughness Matters, I was mostly thinking high toughness, but I also like that listed under top cards on this theme. You go from a very high matters to a very low. So you've got Tetsuko Umezawa that wants creatures with power or toughness 1 or less.
Yeah.
And then you move on to Tree of Perdition, which has a very high toughness of 13 to exchange target opponent's life total with Tree of Perdition's toughness. But you've got cards here in lots of colors as well. Actually, we're in the entire gamut here with I think we're seeing far less red than anything else here, at least in the Toughness Matters. We're seeing Bant, we're seeing Abzan, and we're seeing some Dimir, but Pramicon adds a little bit of red here. Thantis adds a little red. And I think Kineas and Tiro on here might be an outlier, being only 17 decks for the specific theme.
Yeah, I mean, Morophon's on here too, but Morophon could literally be anything. So not sure and it might not even run red cards in your Morophon deck, because you technically don't have to. You could run all colorless in your Morophon deck if you wanted to. So like the only red card that I saw even in the top cards is Aether Membrane, a 3-mana 0/5 defender that can block as though it had flying, and when it blocks a creature, return that creature to its owner's hand at end of combat. So it's actually kind of doing a bounce thing in red, which is strange, but it's from Planar Chaos, or one of those planar shifted sets. So that kind of makes sense that it's red doing a non-red thing there.
Yeah, taking a look, I mean, one of the, I guess, the more expensive cards, if you're running a Toughness Matters deck versus at least Power here, which I think is being skewed from cards like Arcades, is cards like Meekstone. No creature with power greater than 2 may untap during its controller's untap phase. That card's around $8. But as far as enchantments go, we're looking at things like Brave the Sands to give your creatures vigilance and they can block an extra creature, or Angelic Chorus. Whenever a creature comes into play under your control, you gain life equal to its toughness. So we've got a life gain strategy here. Planeswalkers, there is one that really matters here too. Huatli the Sun's Heart, which says each creature you control assigns damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. And then you can gain life equal to a creature's toughness. Yeah, lots of different colors for the specific strategy.
Well, and I like how you were mentioning the sub themes here of like the life gain strategies and stuff. Because like I run Ikra Shadiki in a deck, and the amount of life gain you get from that, and you gain life equal to the toughness and all that. If you kind of look into the sorcery section of the EDHREC page, you start seeing a lot of mill cards that are going to be built into Phoenix. So, Phoenix cares about the toughness of creatures as they tap to mill people out. So it looks like, beside, like you said, the Arcades and Doran the Siege Tower, that kind of stuff, where it's literally just turning big butts into things that can swing, you have these alternate strategies that they're trying to win with these large toughness, maybe putting up giant walls, like literally Pramicon being your commander is a giant wall. You're not going to be swinging with a Pramicon deck. Typically, you're going to be winning by comboing out or something like that. So
yeah, and there's even some redundancy here in these decks with cards like High Alert and Assault Formation to make it so that your creatures assign their combat damage based on their toughness rather than their power. And then just lots of cards that have high toughness, like Wall of Blossoms, Overgrown Battlement. I like that Consuming Aberration makes it in here, even though its toughness is star, because we're assuming you're gonna have a lot of stuff in graveyards, because it's not even just your graveyard. It can be one huge chunk.
If Malignus wasn't red, it would probably be in here too then, in that case. But it's red, so it's not as popular in the Toughness Matters theme.
Yeah, it is not. The next theme that we have here is Bounce. The Bounce theme, returning cards from the battlefield to your hand.
Yeah, so this one only had 9 top commanders, not the normal 24 top commander. So it only had 9, but it still had an average deck price of $221.99. Shoe Lane's at the top end, new hotness, and it's 3 colors. You're going to see a lot of these bounce decks are actually 2 colors and less. So you have a 3 color, relatively new. I guess Throne of Eldraine really isn't relatively new anymore.
It feels weird saying it's not relatively new, but it's only just over 2 years old at this point.
Yeah. And so the most affordable is actually kind of tied between an Aesi and an Edrada deck. So Ones that I wouldn't particularly associate with bounce, I guess Etrata makes sense, because if you don't want Etrata to go back to your command zone, you can bounce it back to your hand so that it's easier to cast. That one, if you get enough bounty counters, it's got that alternate win condition. And with Icy, I'm not really sure where the bounce theme comes in, unless it's specifically talking about bounce lands. So again, there's a little bit of we have to take into account what EDHREC is giving us in terms of the data, and how they are interpreting what the theme is for it. So I think the Etrata, the Silencer, and Shulane are much better bounce theme candidates than the Icy one, in terms of what we want to talk about and the permanents that we want to talk about.
Yeah, looking at the top commanders here, we've got Chulane, Patron of the Moon, Baron, Tolarian, Archmage, Cosima, God of the Voyage, I see Tyrant of Gyre Strait, and Naban, Dean of Iteration. All of them have blue.
Oh, yeah.
And a few of them have green. Tulane also has white.
Yeah, and then again, Morophon the Boundless is always going to be showing up here. And actually, that was my Blink and Flicker deck was a Morophon the Boundless deck. So maybe one of my decks is actually in this here too. So looking at some of the high synergy cards, White Mane Lion is used in a ton of like ETB Matters decks. It's a 2/2 with flash, and when it enters, it returns a creature you control, so you can constantly return itself back to your hand. So if you have infinite white mana or something, you can do infinite enter the battlefield effects on top of just like good ETB creatures like Coiling Oracle, stuff that you're just going to be putting back in your hand and putting out. So I think you're going to see a lot of crossover here between bounce and blink strategies. And I think the bounce strategy is going to end up being the cheaper of the two between bounce and blink strategies, because it takes a little bit more. You have to recast stuff. It's not just going to enter for free. Yeah,
taking a look, some of the commanders made it here because you're returning things to your hand specifically. I'm talking like Patron of the Moon. The Moon folk specific mechanic is to return lands from the battlefield to your hand, which I will say is not a particularly powerful strategy because you can put yourself like way behind. Although I have done it because Moloku, the Clouded Mirror, is a card that also wants you to return a land to your hand to I guess, take benefit of lands that enter the battlefield. Mm-hmm. Some other high synergy cards here, Beast Whisperer. So if you're bouncing something back to your hand, you play it, you can draw a card. Tatiova, whenever you bounce a land, you can, and if you can play a land, I guess you're going to play it, draw a card, and gain a life here as well. I do like seeing Time Wipe listed in the bounce because it's a board wipe that bounces one single creature. So I run this in my Niambi Esteem Speaker deck, mm-hmm. which also made this list because most people don't realize that while Niambi, the way that I play it is to discard a legendary permanent and draw 2 cards. Niambi enters and you may return another target creature you control to its owner's hand if you do gain life equal to that creature's mana value. I've only done that like twice in response because I really need Niambi out and I don't want to flash Niambi in to have to pay 2 more for it. Right. But I've saved the Azor. I've saved Azor before because I Azor is a very, very, very useful creature. Mm-hmm. I haven't saved a lot, but that one I needed to be able to keep playing so that people couldn't play their instants or sorceries. So I do. Do you run any bounce decks?
Like I run, I don't even know if I would consider my Jeskai deck a bounce deck. It's an enter the battlefield deck. It's
more flicker, right? If you have anything happening, do you run many?
I mean, Livio itself is the big flicker. I run all of the bounce spells, pretty much you can like the 4 or 5 ones, like the ghostly flickers and stuff that you want to run that can bounce more than one permanent or don't care what kind of permanent it is. That they don't care if it's a creature or something. Those are the ones I like to run in that one. But it probably wouldn't be considered a bounce deck. It'd probably be more considered a flicker or a blink deck. But yeah, no, I don't think I have bounce.
Can we talk about everyone's favorite bounce spell of all time, though? We love it.
The 2 mana bounce spell? Wait, which bounce spell are you talking about?
Yeah, it's 2 mana.
It's not 7 mana? It's only 2 mana?
It's technically 2, but can be 7.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Coil really loves it when I bounce all of his permanents to his hand with Cyclonic Rift.
It's great, especially when they're tokens.
Especially when they're tokens. Coil really, he didn't need them. He was like, get out of here.
Who needs tokens?
I didn't want you anymore, you beast.
He's probably sacrificing him all the Ash.
I probably got rid of something with a beast within and then got rid of your beast. I was like, you know what? You don't even deserve that beast.
I don't.
Whatever it was, you deserved it.
I deserve less.
No, so Cyclonic Rift is listed on here. I like seeing God Eternal Ketra, and that one is every time that I see that deck, it's a bunch of bouncing effects, and it is so cool.
Yeah.
Every single time.
I enjoy seeing Mystic Snake and what's the other Mystic not coiling Oracle. There's the new Mystic from the
Frilled Mystic.
Frilled Mystic from the Ravnica set.
The counter a spell when it enters.
Yeah, I like those ones. There's Void Slime too that counters a spell when it enters. Or no, Void Slime is just a counter spell that you get a slime from. That one's different.
Reflector Mage is a cool one here. That was
a nice spell.
It was solid in standard, and when I say solid, it was disliked heavily in standard when it was played. I did play that deck. When it enters, you can return target creature an opponent controls to its owner's hand. They cannot cast spells with the same name as that creature until your next turn. So you can bounce their commander. And so you got to take a turn off
from casting your commander.
Yeah.
You can cast other spells. It's fine. It's fine. Just
cast
your other spells.
Sometimes the commander's the problem.
It's always the problem.
But there's just a lot of cool stuff in here. Teamer Sabertooth.
That's my favorite one.
It's so good.
Because it gives itself indestructible too on top of it.
It's really combo centric. Mm-hmm. It does give itself indestructible. It's a 4/3 on top of that. Mm-hmm. Funny enough, that's one of the more expensive cards. It's only $350 being the affordable decks, but that card's $350. It's an uncommon. Yeah. That's had multiple printings.
Now, there is another expensive card. It's like upwards of $10 an enchantment called Guardian Project that allows you to draw cards. But if you're a patron at a certain tier level of the Guardian Project podcast, you probably already received a Guardian Project token to put in your deck. So you don't have to spend over $10 for your copy of Guardian Project.
You don't.
I just wanted to plug that.
Oh, cool. What's our next theme?
So the next theme that we have on here, the second most affordable theme, everyone's favorite theme to play against that no one's ever complained about ever, Mill.
Oh my God, I love it. It's my favorite.
Great. I honestly love Mill, and I wish it didn't get the hate that it gets.
It really does get a lot.
It gets a lot, and it's one of the hardest ways to win in Commander, honestly, to mill your opponents out. I mean, there's combos and stuff that do it, but the average Mill deck theme costs about $214.75. At the top end, you have, I think the most obvious is Bruvak, the Grandiloquent, who's going to be playing as many copies of Persistent Petitioners as possible in most cases. You have Lazav the Multifarious, which is actually more of a combo deck and a self-mill deck than anything else, and the Scarab God, which is blue-black good stuff. Whether you're milling yourself or your opponents, that's probably what's happening. And those are going to be some of your three more expensive ones. And at the bottom end, we have Nethroi and one of the most talked about creatures on this podcast ever, Hogak. The Arisen Necropolis, being very, very cheap versions of mill decks. Obviously, Nethroi and Hogak themselves don't mill cards. So it's just a lot of the cards that are in them. Nethroi, obviously, you want to self-mill yourself to get everything back. And Hogak, you want to self-mill yourself to be able to cast your commander. So when it comes to this mill strategy, we're looking at both self-mill and opponent mill.
I like that a lot of the cards we're seeing now that mill has been specifically keyworded, and they have built cards specifically to take advantage of mill strategies. In the top commanders here, we're seeing quite a few new commanders appear, right? So Bruvak the Grandiloquent is a very powerful card.
Oh yeah.
Arami of the Dead Tide, Anawan, the Rune Sage, even Sir Conrad the Grim, Xanathar, Guild Kingpin. There's a lot of new stuff within the last 2 years that have made this list. And I personally don't dislike playing against Mill. I get to show everybody on stream or that I'm playing against my deck because you've milled each individual card that I read.
That's what I try to tell people. Let me read
my deck list to you real quick. Hold on. I run this. Oh, cool card. Everybody likes to look at the shinies as they hit my graveyard.
Absolutely. See, that's why when I'm playing my Osgir deck and I have 4 copies of Mesmeric Orb out, I don't know why everyone's so mad. You get to see everyone's decks.
Milled me with your Osgir deck, and I was close to winning. I needed one more turn because I was running the black, she's sipping on tea in the artwork, and she's from Strixhaven.
Yep. Not Willow Dusk.
It's a card, but it's not from this theme.
Dina Soul Steeper.
She
steeps the tea.
She steeped the tea
with souls.
And the tea you gave me was, you have no more library.
No, you have
that none. Was real tea, real shade.
That was.
It was good.
That was awesome. I love that.
It was very good. So looking at some high synergy cards here, we've got cards like Nyx Weaver, Satyr Wayfinder, Underrealm Lich, World Shaper. But looking at some of the top cards, there are a lot of cards that are just mill, right? So we've got Chord of Cunning, which is the new Monarch mechanic, or not new Monarch, but one of the new cards that introduces Monarch from Commander Legends. Psychic Corrosion from M19. Whenever you draw a card, each opponent puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard. Traumatize, Memory Erosion, Rune Crab, Mind Grind. All the cards.
Yeah, Ruin Crab, particularly good in Commander because it's each opponent mills 3 cards, where Hedron Crab from the other Zendikar set, the original Zendikar set, is actually only target opponent mills 3 cards. We saw Maddening Cacophony get printed in the recent Zendikar set, which can mill half of someone's deck. You could even run the enchantment from Hour of Devastation, where at the end of target player's turn, they mill cards equal to the number of cards they milled earlier in the turn to just instantly kill someone. So, there's a lot of mill strategy. Like you said, some of the newer commanders really cared about mill. So we're starting to see the sets really care about mill a little bit too. Fraying Sanity is that enchantment from Hour of Devastation.
I also really like that this is the theme that most benefits from or I guess not even benefits, can most use the card Didn't Say Please and not feel bad when you counter someone's spell and mill it. It's like, you should have said please when you cast every spell that you cast this game.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't say please.
Now, I do particularly like Tasha's Hideous Laughter. I've been playing a lot of it in Standard, and it's been a lot of fun. Obviously, this card actually gets exponentially better based on the power level of decks that you're playing, because it cares about total mana value. You mill cards until you have total mana value of 20. So the more competitive you're playing and the more 0 mana and 1 mana rocks everyone is playing in their decks, for every copy of Ad Nauseam that a commander deck has, you should consider more and more to play Tasha's Hideous Laughter. I actually play this in my Kess CEDH deck because I thought it would be fun to try to get someone by being able to cast it twice with Kess's ability to cast a card from my graveyard, and try to see if I can mill some out in a CEDH deck. So I'm sure it has some good implications. It's nice that it exiles and not just mills someone, so they can't gain access to it. Maybe they have a Kozilek at the top of their library or something, and you want to exile it so that it doesn't reshuffle the graveyard in. So
now, a lot of the more expensive cards actually that make up these decks come from your artifacts, with cards like Altar of Dementia, Mesmeric Orb, and Altar of the Brood. So Altar of Dementia is around $8. Mesmeric Orb is $8.50 now, and Altar of the Brood is a $6 card. You're sacking creatures, having people mill. Mesmeric Orb is whenever a permanent becomes untapped, that player mills a card that includes you. And then Alter the Brew, whenever another permanent enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent puts the top card of their library into their graveyard. And the one that I think I like the most, that I've actually felt the pain from, is Folio of Fancies, which is just an artifact that says players have no max hand size, but you can make each player draw X cards by paying XX and tapping it, or paying 2 in a blue and tapping it to make each opponent mill cards equal to the number of cards in their hand. Mm-hmm. I love these cards. That one's affordable, but there's only a few cards that are pretty expensive. But I do think that those Mesmeric Orb, Altar of Dementias, Altar of the Broods are pretty solid for this strategy and pretty necessary.
Yeah, and they keep coming out and printing new cards that keep comboing off with these cards that are 1 and 2 CMC artifacts that you can fit in any deck color theme possible. So don't expect these cards to get cheaper, even though they're in the second most affordable deck theme here.
Yeah. What is our most affordable deck theme?
All right. So did you have any guesses or anything before we just go right into it? I know you've probably already obviously you've read the agenda.
so I have read the agenda. I was thinking it wasn't this, because I thought this would be a lot more expensive. I don't think I had a guess for which was the most affordable. I had more guesses for which I thought were the most expensive.
Okay.
That used a lot of staples. Did you think you knew what was going to be the most affordable before you put together the list?
I didn't think that this particular theme was going to be the most affordable. I think I thought just like probably tokens or +1/+1 counters would have been the most affordable, just because it's so well supported and they've been printing those things for forever. Maybe there was a creature type theme that would have been more affordable, but that wasn't considered in this. So no, I definitely didn't guess the number one most affordable theme according to EDHREC, and that is Auras. So we have the Auras theme with the average deck price of $207.81. Corona the False God and Rafika the Many average deck prices are actually at the top end for auras. And that kind of makes sense because you have a 5-color and a 3-color commander. So again, your land base is going to be a little bit more expensive. And then the cheapest average deck price, the average deck price of a Utopia auras deck is $87.39.
Utopia, the twice favored, which if you do watch any of our gameplay streams on YouTube, there is a game with a Utopia, the twice favored.
And I think
somewhere in
it was like a $25 budget deck.
It was a budget deck there.
Yeah, it's like so when you're talking about like budget decks, building under a really strict budget, a lot of times you're going to depend on commander damage and auras and that kind of stuff, equipment. So maybe that's where all of this budget comes from when it comes from specifically Utopia. But, you know, even some of the staples, brand new staples are still the really good ones for aura decks are still really cheap. Sithis Harvest Hand for Modern Horizons 2 and Sanctum Weaver for Modern Horizons 2. You can get both of them for $2 or less per card. So even the brand new cards are super, super affordable. All of the Theros cards that cared about enchantments, your Eidolon of Blossoms, your Setessan Champion, Enchantress Presence, Satyr Enchanter, these cards are all like under $2, every single one of them. And these are your huge card draw engines in your deck. The stuff that's going to kill people. All That Glitters was an amazing enchantment. It is uncommon, printed at Throne of Eldraine to get +1/+1 for each artifact and or enchantment you control, is going to make Utopia absolutely huge on top of any of your aura decks. I guess we should kind of take a step back and look at the top commanders here.
Yeah, so our top commanders, we've got some new stuff here. Last couple of years, again, we've got the Galena, Kindler of Hope, which came from our newest, well, actually not our newest commander decks anymore.
Not
this
anymore.
Came out from, this was the AFR commander decks.
Yes.
We have Killian, Ink Duelist, which came out in Strixhaven, Sionia, Captain of the Pyleas, which came out in Theros Beyond Death, Tuvasa the Sunlit, solid deck that I've lost to. We have played with Max from CMDR Central against his Tuvasa the Sunlit deck. Ural the Miststalker is one that I don't see played very much anymore. It's a Naya auras deck. Ural gets +2/+2 for each aura attached to it. Bruna Light of Alabaster is a really cool. So that's the original Bruna. When it attacks, you may attach to it any number of auras on the battlefield, and you may put onto the battlefield attached to it any number of auras that could enchant it from your graveyard or your hand. That's a really cool card.
That's a pretty big card.
It's a pretty big card. And then you've got cards like Zur the Enchanter.
Love Azur. I was surprised that this doesn't have more aura decks on it, honestly, because when it attacks, you get to just freely search for one that's 3 CMC or less. And actually it comes in if it's an aura already attached to a creature, so it actually gets around the Shroud keyword and everything, so you can give Zur Shroud right away and then still attach a lot of your auras to it. Rafika the Many is one that I thought about building this deck a long time ago. It's a 3/3 in the Bant color, so green, white, blue, and 1 generic with Exalted. Whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gains double strike. So you're pretty much just building it all around Rafik, building him up so that you can give him double strike and kill your opponent in one shot. One double shot, but one shot.
Sure. So a lot of these decks are running some cards that are going to allow you to draw. So they refer to these as Enchantress decks. You've got cards like Eidolon of Blossom, Satyr Enchanter, Enchantress's Presence, Mesa Enchantress. All of these are saying whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you may draw a card. And a few of these have, actually, I think all of these at this point have been reprinted to the point where they are all, except for Eidolon of Blossom, sub $1. They used to be a bit more.
Yeah. You even see when you go to some of the top cards that there are tutor synergies that you can get for under $1. For 4 mana, you can get Sage's Reverie. When it enters the battlefield, you get to draw a bunch of cards. But Heliod's Pilgrim for 3 mana, it's a common from Theros Beyond Death. The Human Cleric, when it enters the battlefield, you search your library for an aura card, reveal it, and put it into your hand and shuffle your library. So for 3 mana, you can basically Demonic Tutor an aura into your hand. You got to show everyone what it is, but you can Demonic Tutor an aura into your hand in an aura deck. That's all you're going to really care about. Steel of the Godhead is one that I see in a lot of like Zur the Enchanter and Rafika the Many decks. Any ones where your enchanted creature is both blue and white, so that it gets +1 or +2/+2, lifelink and unblockable. Finest Hour is a Bant enchantment that I really like that also has Exalted on it. Whenever a creature you control attacks alone, if it's the first combat phase of the turn, you untap that creature, and after this phase, additional combat phase, so extra combat phases outside of the color red. Really important for auras, and actually the fact that it is outside of the color red is why it's cheaper, because you're not typically doing multiple combats in Bant.
Yeah, and looking at some cards that are more expensive or used to be more expensive, we've got Estrid's Invocation, which is $13 enchantment now. So it is for 2 and a blue, you have it enter the battlefield as any enchantment you control, except it gains at the beginning of your upkeep. You may blink it, so you may exile this enchantment. If you do, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. When it enters, you can change it around, so that's a cool one. And then Sterling Grove was reprinted in Modern Horizons 2. That card did used to be like a $12 card as well. For a green and a white, it says other enchantments you control have Shroud. Pay 1, sacrifice Sterling Grove, search your library for an enchantment, reveal it, and then put it on top. So that's a tutor there and gives protection to your other enchantments.
For sure. Speaking of which, of cards that have gotten lower in price, Utopia Sprawl was a card that was like over $10 being pushed. It was a modern card that only got printed once, but that got reprinted in one of the latest Commander decks. I think from the AFR set in the Equipment and Auras deck, we got Utopia Sprawl reprinted. So now you can pick that up for under $7. It's one of the best land auras that there is. When it enters the battlefield, you choose a color. You have to enchant a forest, and when it's tapped for mana, it adds an additional mana of the chosen color.
And we've got a new land that was printed a few years ago now. Hall of Heliod's Generosity even cares about enchantment. So for 1 and a white, tap, put target enchantment card from your graveyard on top of your library. That, and then the number 1 planeswalker for enchantments. I mean, it's Esther the Masked. She's gonna make some masks.
It's gotta be.
She's gonna put some masks on them, and then Calyx Destiny's Hand. For +1, you can leave the top 4 cards of your library and reveal an enchantment and put that card into your hand. The rest on the bottom of your library in a random order.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, I do have to take this opportunity, since we're talking about auras and we're talking about it being the most affordable deck theme, to talk about a combo that I like in auras, and that is the combo with Arden, Intrepid Archaeologist, and an enchantment from Ikoria called Colossification. So you can pick up a copy of Arden for 44 cents and a copy of Colossification for 35 cents. So for under $1 with Arden on the battlefield, you can cast Colossification to enchant one of your opponent's creatures. Colossification is a 7 mana aura that says enchant creature. When Colossification enters the battlefield, tap the enchanted creature, and the enchanted creature gets +20/+20. You might ask, why are we enchanting our opponent's creature? It's to tap it, and then when we move to combat, we're going to move that Classification onto our Arden and swing for 22 commander damage. And that is under a $1 combo where you can kill someone as long as they only have 1 blocker.
You can see proof of that happening on our YouTube channel. At some point, Coyle played that deck.
So much fun.
And put the enchantment on my 1 untapped creature, and I was like, cool. And I was in the middle of drawing a token. Oh, I think we told this story on one of our... And then he killed me before the token was drawn.
You like stepped away to walk away, and I was like, oh wait, no.
I wanted to grab a different color marker to like make it a really good token. I came back and Coyle goes, "You don't need to draw it. I'm just gonna take you out with that little combo." It was really good.
It's cool. There needs to be a name for it. I think if you can think of a name for Arden plus Colossification combo, send it to us. All right. So that was the 5 most affordable deck themes. Now, taking a look at these 5, again, we've got +1/+1 counters, Toughness Matters, Bounce, Mill, and Aura. Between the 2 of us, we had a +1/+1 counters deck at one point. Mm-hmm. I've had a Powers Matter. I've never had a Toughness Matters, but you've got an EDHREC deck. Yeah, it's a clones deck technically, but I mean, when I have 8 copies of EDHREC, it looks like a Toughness Matters deck. But we know that people in our play group have had Doran the Siege Tower decks. At our local game stores, we've seen Arcades all over the place.
I've been milled by Phoenix before.
Oh, yeah.
Bounce. I think I just played generic bounce spells. I don't think I have a dedicated bounce deck, and I've never had one.
No, Blink and Flicker more than bounce than anything else, just because it's more value immediately. I think that's why I would do it.
Yeah. Mill. We don't have a mill, although I have the Bruvac and the cards I wanted for it. I just don't want to order 22 persistent petitioners because I have like 5 already. Right. And I said I'm not going to order these.
My Osgir deck does try to focus on getting Mesmeric Orb and trying to get as many copies of Mesmeric Orb to either mill my opponents out or mill myself in order to get good cards in my graveyard for me to use Osgir's ability with. But my Tetsuko Umezawa deck actually has an alternate win condition of mill, using all of those enchantments that say you get to mill your opponents whenever you draw cards, and really focuses on drawing cards more than anything.
Yeah. Well, I think that is it for this week.
Yeah.
We want to thank you so much for listening. If you want to contact me directly, I'm on Twitter at ATFlory.
And I'm on Twitter at WormCoilEngine. And of course, we want to give a special thanks to Ryan Nichols, our producer and editor. We love you. Thank you. And Chris Wolf, who handles all of our graphic design. We love you too. Thanks. And to all of you listening,
we also love you.
We also love you. And we're going to talk to you next week.
Love you.
I'm so excited.
Goodbye.
Bye.